Now to everyone, and welcome to the Real Estate Radio Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group at Keller Williams Realty, where, Chris, I'm told that this show is hotter than the weather that we have had this week. Is it unbelievable out there? I guess the question I want to ask you, is the real estate market cooking like that?
Yeah, actually we're having a good month, which is great. We finally came out of June and July, which are typically pretty slow in the real estate world, just not just in Boise, but in general, overall across the nation, people getting their vacations out of the way. So we've started to see a little bit more activity, which is nice, and a lot of people coming to town to visit and check out Boise. And, with all the good press we've been receiving over the last 2 months, I think a lot of people are starting to make the decision to make the move.
And a big part of that, obviously, is your show that you have. We've almost been on the air for a year. If it's the first time you've listened to the Real Estate Radio Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group, our goal is to get you good information. If you say I'm looking to list my house with somebody, or I've got questions that need to be answered, we want you to reach out to Chris. Today's a good example. We've got our friends from Concierge Legacy, Van Carlson and Aaron Seehawer. They're on to talk a little bit about, I asked them, I said, what's this fiscal cliff? I mean, where's the economy going? So we got a little bit of everything out there.
Yeah, we do. I love having these guys on the show, and they've been on a couple of times, and I really like, what kind of information they can give. And the whole point of the show is kind of just discuss, not just real estate, but what's going on in everyone's world, in the economic environment in Boise. And I think that Aaron and, what they're going to discuss this, what they call the fiscal cliff. But I think what Aaron and Van bring to it is just a different perspective on what's going on with, investment money and all that.
All right. I don't know if this is a $64,000 question, but today we'll call it the $159,000 question. Chris, is it a seller or is it a buyer's market, or is it both? My sense is, for a while, obviously, that's not my sense, it's been a buyer's market. Is that pendulum beginning to shift, or where are we?
It is, and I think, for a while we've kind of been in a little stalemate with the sellers and the buyers and everything that's going on out there. And what I think we've reached to a point where the buyers are now starting to see that the sellers, for example, we just talked about right here, the numbers. So we're up 13% year-to-date appreciation in Ada County. From last year. And if you look at it and you look at the sold price so far this year from January to now, the average list price was $160,000 roughly, and the average sold price is $159,000, which is showing that the sellers themselves are getting within 1% of asking price. A lot of that is due to the fact that lower range, 100, 120, is getting multiple offers. So they're actually getting more than the list price. See what I'm saying? So when people put it on the market, all that 100 to 120,000 range, we've seen up to 17 offers on one house. I've heard, and we've actually been involved where we've had 5, 6 the very first hour that the house comes on the market.
So you've talked about two items the last couple of months. One being the correction,
sure,
and then appreciation. My sense is we're at that correction. Where are we at as far as going back to the days when we said, well, buy a house because it's always going to gain in value? Are you getting close to seeing that yet?
Well, I think we're there. You look at, we talk about the average price last year to date was $139. We're at $159 now. And you talk about that 13% jump. Well, I discuss a lot about market correction. And I think, people need to understand market correction is when it gets so low, just like Aaron and Van can talk a little bit about if we want to discuss like the stock market, when it just dumped, it was so low that was it really appreciation? No, it was more of a correction of what happened in the marketplace. So when I talk about that, that's and all of it goes back to consumer confidence and what everyone's feeling about it, but it changes markets and it can change them fast. It's never going to go back to where it was. We're never going to see lending as loose as it was. It's just not going to happen. But we've seen this little correction, which I like to call it the market correction. It's 13%. I think we're going to start seeing 4 to 6% annually here, just year by year, and more of a steady market.
You're listening to the Real Estate Radio Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group at Keller Williams Realty. We come your way each and every Saturday. By the way, if you miss any of the programs, Annette, who is our fabulous producer and the executive assistant at Chris Lofthus, you can log on at chrislofthus.com. She posts those shows, so if you missed a past show or want to find out what's coming up next week, elements along that line, I think Burton Freeze is going to drop by our studio next week. So you can look at that and it'll keep you posted. Then more importantly, if you're saying, hey, I want to know about the market, should I sell my house? Should I list it? Should I buy a house? Reach out, 350-6228, 350-6228. So here's a couple of questions for you, Chris. Number one, the buyers, you say, okay, they're on the sidelines for one reason. there's not enough stuff out there for them to buy. So why? I mean, I know why me as a seller, I haven't listed because I don't think I'm at my price yet, just my break-even price. Is that a good snapshot or not?
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's why we're seeing so much. We're seeing so much of the new construction coming back in the valley here, and that big push of what's going on out there. But it is, the buyers, they come. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. They come here and they start looking around, and they're looking at, hey, I could have got this house last year for $138,000. Now I'm talking $159,000. That's a huge jump, and it's a big, tough pill for buyers to swallow because they're like, well, I wanted it for $139,000, and those days are over. I mean, it's average price of $139,000 in historically in Ada County is very low. So if you look at it, there are some ups and downs, but overall, I think we're going to see buyers starting to kind of clue into what's really going on and say, you know what, I better get it now because that 158 is going to be 168 next year. So I think that's kind of where we're headed.
We're looking at some of the numbers in terms of, you say, is the market at a stalemate? How about the transaction volume? And I look at your numbers here, Chris, you say that's roughly the same. What does that mean as far as our confidence out there? And are we really confident? Are we not so confident? Where do we stand?
It's just like you said, stalemate. And I think that's kind of what we're sitting in. We're sitting about exactly where we were. Even though the prices are higher, we're sitting exactly where we were volume-wise with closed transactions. Again, it goes back to total inventory. You talk about 2,300 homes. I always talk about right now, I'd love to see 3,000, 3,300 homes. Back when the market was horrible, there were 6,700 on the market. And back when the market was ripping hot in 2005, there was 1,300 homes in the market. So we're only, we're roughly 1,000 homes more than when the market was really hot. So it's kind of like, as we talk about that stalemate, I think the buyers are sitting there on the fence, but it's all kind of starting to rumble and starting to change.
Now, I know I've asked you this question before as far as what goes on in November. There's an election, and I can't wait to talk to both Van and Aaron about this. But is that going to play a part in the real estate piece, or is that much to do about nothing? I know it's going to affect a lot of other things, but what's your sense on that? Or do you look at it and say, hey, guess what? No matter what happens in the election, people are moving. Their kids are getting ready to go to school. They're adding new members to the family, or their grandparents are moving in, whatever it might be. What does Chris Lofthus, what's your sense of what's going to get us out of that stalemate?
Well, you talk about, a lot of people talk about how it affects the economy, how it affects real estate, the stock market, whatever. But, for the most part, I just think it's change. People are looking forward to change, or, whether we get change or not, who knows? But the fact of it is, I don't think it really affects either, Van or Aaron's world. I think that's more of a, it could be in the consumer's head a little bit, but overall, I don't think it really has that much of an effect. And we can talk to these guys a little about it as well.
All right. As we remind you, it is the Real Estate Radio Show featuring Chris Lofthus of the Chris Lofthus Group at Keller Williams Realty. Of course, our guests today are friends from Concierge Legacy. Their motto is creating, protecting, and preserving wealth for future generations. And we always enjoy having these guys on because, I think it goes back to what you say is, here are my vendors of choice. These are people that I recommend. It's no different than when you told me, hey, Burton Freeze is coming on next week.
Right.
He does all my remodeling. We talked to TJ at Pristine Pool and Spa, all down the list. These are guys and gals that you say, I recommend them, I use them, and so should you.
Right, and that's kind of the point of the show. And I tell people, it's not just, I'm not here just pushing real estate or trying to get people to buy or sell real estate, but the overall point is that when you get involved in it, whether it's a transaction or whether you need advice on a vendor like Van and Aaron and Concierge Legacy, it's, I try to surround myself with high talent, and these guys, what I really like about them is that you're going to get honest, ethical answers out of them regarding your investments.
Now, do you work today? Is Saturday your day off, or just to come into the studio and do
I work
the
every
show?
day.
You do? Okay. Well, we're going to a timeout, so go ahead and give your cell number, and we can see
my direct cell number, you can always reach me, Chris at clgeagle.com, or you can reach out to me, 514-5003.
And, of course, the website is Chris Lofthus, and that's ChrisLofthus. That's chrislofthus.com. And our other number when we're on the air is 350-6228, 350-6228. Our friends from Concierge Legacy joining us next. And also we'll kind of look at some of the pieces on Facebook, your YouTube channel. Chris, you've become an empire. You're a media mogul. Young Ted Turner, I like to refer to you as.
Yeah, I don't do any of that. Actually, it's kind of funny part about it is Van's son does. Van's son, who we're going to have on in a couple weeks, he does all our YouTube and Facebook posting. And so go check it out. It's really cool.
All right. And do you have what is it, Chris Lofthus group, and you just click right on the little F button?
Yep, has all our virtual tours on it. It has a lot of stuff about our company and everything else.
All right.
And
sounds
the show.
Good. All right. We'll be back with more right after this timeout.
Fiscal Cliff.